Hi guys, it's Mark from Wheelie Boost here. Today I'm going to do a quick tutorial on GNOME Sequencer. Myself and Paul have recently come back to Warcraft after various short breaks throughout our 11-12 years playing. Obviously after that period of time you get a little bit bored doing rotations and so on and so forth. So we looked at alternatives. Obviously there's bots out there which you want to steer clear of, and I remember reading about something called GNOME Sequencer, which would effectively do what the old style macros used to do, where you could sequence spells to cast in a row. So we looked into it, and it turns out it works really well, certainly for Paladin, and Paul's playing a rogue at the minute. It seems to work really well. I mean, I'm only level 82 at the minute, but certainly for leveling, if you can't be bothered, it's brilliant, first class. Especially if you know what you're doing for the class. I mean, I played Paladin end game in Wrath and Mr. Pandaria, and for the most part of Warlords of Draenor. So playing the class is not an issue. It was purely the boredom of leveling up, but I wanted to level up rather than go on my old character, just to enjoy the questing and the experience again. And you're able to do that with GNOME Sequence, really good. But what I've also done is I've used my Razor Naga and set up a macro so it spams the spell rather than having to press it manually. So all I do is, let me show you here. So, actually, hold on, I need to change the settings on my Naga. We'll show you this later, but I've got two profiles, one to set for none, which doesn't do anything, then I've got one for Warcraft, which spams one of the buttons. Okay, so for example on this training dummy, all I do, I've got down here on key 1 I've got my AoE rotation, and then on key number 2 I've got my single target. So when I press 1 on my Naga, hands free, just goes through his rotation. Now I've researched it, and Blizzard seem to be absolutely fine with this. It almost feels like I'm using a bot. However, you know, if they say it's fine, it's fine. So you press it once, turns it on, press it again, turns it off. Same with number 2. Press it, turns it on, press it again, turns it off. What I've also created is macros for my cooldowns. So if I need to use those, I can just use those with the press of a button, because they're all on stop cast macros, like Fist of Justice, Ardent Defender, Divine Protection, and Rebuke, my Interrupt. They're all on stop cast macros, so there's no issue with having to turn it on and turn it off. Okay, so without further ado, let's have a look at how GNOME Sequencer works. First of all, we need to download GNOME Sequencer. Easy. Okay, just go on to wowinterface.com and do a little search, and you'll come across GNOME Sequencer. Just hit the download button. Okay, and once it's downloaded, you'll get a zip file with these 4 files in. Obviously the GNOME Sequencer main file. What you need to do is drop that into your normal WoW interface folder, and once you do, obviously I won't do it because I've already got mine in there, I'll overwrite it. What you need to do then is change example sequences to sequences. You need to do a simple sort of left click on it to change the name, and just change it to sequences. And once that's done, you need to right click and open with. Then you do, open with, and then just use Notepad. And this is where it gets not complicated, but this is the meat of what we're going to be doing. So all this mumbo jumbo here, you can just ignore it. You just need to scroll to the bottom. I'll open the example one because that's a blank one. It'll probably be easier to see. So you just leave all of this in, and that's fine. Just leave it at that. Now, at the end of here, it just tells you an example, blah blah blah, spell name, etc., etc. Okay, so we just leave all them in. That's absolutely fine. Then at the end, this is where we start our macros. As you can see, I've got quite a few added in here because I've been trying a few of them. Tried a hunter one, which seemed to work okay. It wasn't great, but then again, it was just a low-level hunter, as well as a warlock one, which seemed to work pretty well. So to get our macros, we do a little Google search. Gnome sequence of macros. Then Wow Lazy Macros is where I've sourced all of mine. Really easy to do. So just pop onto the forums, find your class. So mine's a paladin, and I'm a protection paladin. And then I think this was the one I used. So you click that, scroll down to the macro you wanted, which, for example, this one, sequences prot single. So you copy that, copy it, and then you can minimize that. Then you go into your sequences notepad, and then this little close bracket here, you want to press enter twice, and then just paste it in. Make sure you've got sequences all the way down to the closed bracket, and make sure you include that closed squiggly bracket as well. Then once you're done, to close that, do you want to save? Save. So I'm not going to save it because it doesn't really matter to me. Oh god, don't save. So then you'll have a macro, for example. Mine is PP AOE. You need to make a note of this in here, this information, whatever it says. See, this one's PP ST, PP prot AOE, prot ST. All this stands for is protection AOE, protection single target, protection paladin AOE, protection paladin single target. These are the two that I mainly use. I did try a couple more, but I think these have got a couple of extra spells in which I don't have yet or have much use for until I start raiding. So now we've got that information in there, we can just close these off. Okay, so once you get back into Warcraft, what you need to do is you need to take the name of the profile you downloaded. So back in sequences for me, it was PPST, for example, protection paladin single target. So then you go to create new, and then you just PPST and click OK. Then what will happen is, obviously because I've already got one, it'll create, hashtag show tooltip, and then / click PPST. Okay, then you need to drag that down to your bar, which I've got at set number 2. Okay, now normally when I set my profile a none, to get this to work, press 2. It'll do it every time I press the keypad. Now that is fine, that's absolutely fine, and it's really easy to do. It's not a problem, not a problem at all. However, if you've got a Razor Naga, you can set up macros. So when you press 2, it just repeats it over again. Okay, so here's the Razor Synapse app to create your macros. First of all, you might want to create a separate profile for Warcraft, just so when you're not using your mouse on a day-to-day basis, when you press 1 and 2, it doesn't just spam the buttons. It does get a little bit annoying. So you create a new profile just by pressing the plus button, type in what you want to call it. Call mine Warcraft 2, just so I can keep it separate from my other one. Okay, then you want to go to macros. Now, as you can see, I've got mine created here. Spam 1, it literally presses 1, waits 0.07 seconds, and then releases 1. Now that's cool. That's absolutely fine. That's just a normal button press. It doesn't make any difference. However, the important part is once you've created it to when you attach it to a key to make it repetitive. So to create a macro, let's create a quick one here. Macro 1. What it is going to be, it's just going to be button press number 1. Oh, forgot to press record. And press number 1. Now press stop, and then you can change this. I mean, you can set it to whatever you want. I've just got mine set to 0.7 for no reason other than that's what I pressed it, and then just round it down. So change that to 0.7, and there you go. Now, when we go back to the mouse and assign, we go to the side view and we assign to number 1. We've got keyboard function, got all this stuff, and macro. So we need to click on macro. And these are all the ones we created. So what did we create? We created macro 1 before. Now these are your options. So play once, it'd just be a normal button press. Play multiple times. So here you'll be able to choose how many times it actually presses it. Now that's fine for some users, but not in our case. What we want to do is toggle continuous playback on and off using assign key. So once we press that, press save, and that's it, it's assigned. So that is essentially the same as what I've got there. Spam 1, spam 2, and cooldowns. Cooldowns is, that's irrelevant, you don't need to know about that. But spam 2 is exactly the same, but instead of spamming number 1, it spams number 2, which is my single target macro. So once that's done, you can just close that down. It might be possibly worth reloading WoW again, but once that's done, happy spamming.